Alien Romulus is the newest entry into the Alien franchise. This one, however, not directed by Ridley Scott. This one is directed by Fede Alvarez, the director behind the 2013 Evil Dead remake and Don't Breathe. In this movie, you have this group of young, sort of colonists, miners, whatever you want to call them. They work on this planet of sorts. Everything's terrible. Everything's shit. They want to leave this planet. They want to go to a different place, pursue a better life. And they realize there's an abandoned space shuttle out there that recently went through some kind of problem. There are some space pods out there. They want to use that and transport themselves to a new world so they can start a fresh new life. But when they get on this wrecked spaceship, they quickly realize that there is something on there that is menacing, dangerous, evil, and intends to kill them all. This slowly became a movie I got a lot more hyped for as the year went on. Initially going into it, this was not something I was too excited for. I'm admittedly not super into the Alien franchise. I've seen the first two movies, Alien and Aliens. I think both are fantastic. I think Alien is the pinnacle of sci-fi horror. Aliens is the pinnacle of sci-fi action. Both in their own ways are two of the greatest movies ever made. And beyond that, I never really just got into the Alien franchise. I've seen bits and pieces of, I think the first Alien vs. Predator. Wasn't really too into that. I haven't seen Prometheus. I haven't seen Alien Covenant. None of them just got enough praise or positive word of mouth from people I had trusted for me to want to check them out myself. I just lived my life perfectly content with the first two Alien movies. So because of that, when this movie was announced, I thought to myself, I mean, cool, it's happening, but I'm not expecting much of it. But when I heard that Fede Alvarez was going to be the director of this movie, that's when my interest started to peak a lot more. Because Fede Alvarez just felt like the perfect director to do an Alien movie. The guy completely captures that essence in his last two movies. He knows how to give you the really disturbing, creepy, scary imagery, graphic violence, amazing practical effects, as we saw in his Evil Dead remake. And he also knows how to capture that really intense, claustrophobic, you can't even breathe or make a sound or you're gonna die sort of vibe that he gave us in Don't Breathe. Take those two concepts, make them go splat, and you basically have the makings of a great Alien movie. And since this movie's been released, many are calling it the best Alien movie we've gotten since the classic two Alien movies. And honestly, I'll take their word for it. I thought this movie was really good. Start off with the characters in this movie. Okay, as far as stereotypical horror movie fashion goes, not every character in this movie is important. But I want to touch on really quickly on the ones that stood out the most for me and certainly had the most impact in this movie. Kaylee Spaney is the lead character in this movie. She reminds me a little bit like a mix of Ripley from the Alien franchise and a little bit like the leading lady in Don't Breathe. She's smart in her field, she's smart in her craft, she has a very survival instinct going for her like Ripley. But similar to the character in Don't Breathe, she has sort of this really strong, like, motherly, older sister instinct to one of the other characters who I'll touch on in a minute. And she wants to pursue a better life for the two of them. It's ultimately what makes her go on this mission to check out this spacecraft and see what's out there. Now, granted, no one is aware of how dangerous this mission is, but regardless, she believes there's a better future and life out there for her if she pursues this, so she does. She's just someone with a good heart, a good mindset, and she's someone you can root for in that sense. The other character I really want to touch on, though, without getting to spoiler detail, but for me, standout of the movie, David Johnson plays her brother in this movie, and he absolutely crushed it. Trying to find the right way to sum it up without giving anything away, his performance required him to essentially play two different versions of one character. On one hand, he has to play a guy who's a little more simple, a little just more, I don't want to say weak-minded, but more naive. And on the other hand, he had to play a character that was very logical, very stoic, very smart. It really showed the range in him, and I thought he absolutely crushed the character that he played. Honestly, I can't think of anything else he's been in recent years. I don't know if this is his big breakout role, but I really frankly hope we see a lot more of him. Kaylee Spaney, I would say the same thing, but she's really started to come on in recent years, so I know she'll get more work for herself. But David Johnson, I hope he does as well. As far as the other characters in the movie go, it's stereotypical horror fashion, as I mentioned earlier. Some of these characters, you watch them, you're just like, okay, you're definitely gonna die. You're probably dying. I kind of hope you don't die, but if you do, I hope it looks awesome. That's what they're here for. You're like, some of you, if you survive, cool. Some of you, I hope you get absolutely just massacred in this movie. And yeah, how is the atmosphere? How are the thrills? How are the scares? How is the tension? I really felt for the most part this movie really honed in on what made the classic Alien movie so good when it came to sci-fi horror elements. The movie has all of its throwbacks to the original Alien movies when it comes to the face huggers and the chest bursting and everything that goes into that. And yeah, when you see it here, Fede Alvarez once again relies heavily on the practical effects, and I thought that was awesome. It made everything feel a little more real, a little more bloody and disturbing. And it's supposed to. These Alien movies are really supposed to hit you in that sense. It's supposed to make you feel disgusted and freaked out and on the edge of your seat more because of it. I think the alien itself in this movie was mostly practical effects, and I thought that was really impressive. It really showed a testament to what they were able to pull off with certain scenes involving the alien and the cast members. I thought that was great. What I also appreciate this movie did, though, is it wasn't just with the alien itself that they were really trying to hone in on the horror. There's a lot of different elements here. There is one scene here with face huggers that you've probably heard about a little bit here and there, but there's one moment in particular. It's one of the most intense movie scenes I have seen all year. I mean, not gonna ruin it for you guys, but I'll say this much. It gave me a little bit of the kitchen scene from Jurassic Park vibes. I was white-knuckling it through the whole scene. You have no idea who, if anyone, is gonna get out of this situation. And what I also thought was really great for this movie when it came to the horror and thrills aspect of it, is it's not just the alien or any variations of the alien that these people are trying to avoid. They're on a destroyed spaceship where anything could go wrong, and a lot of shit goes wrong. Like, there's not a whole lot of moments where you feel like you can just unwind and take a breath for yourself. There's a lot of moments here where characters have to deal with something that's going horribly wrong for themselves. Could be oxygen escaping from the bridge, or something leaking and flooding, or something just falling apart entirely that the characters have to get away from. This movie is an alien movie, but it understood it didn't just need the alien to make this movie as intense and as frightening as it could be. Also, yeah, credit to the sound design in this movie. I said this earlier this year. I thought Civil War had the most effective, potentially best sound design I had heard in a movie this year. Alien Romulus is gonna give this movie serious competition. I once again saw this movie in IMAX, and there are certain moments where the sound just rattles your seat. You feel like you're literally like going up on a roller coaster or something like that. It just goes right through you. It hits you. It makes scenes that much more effective. It truly was fantastic sound design. I was literally and figuratively blown away by it. And yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I feel like for the most part, the movie did a very good job at blending some really good visual effects with excellent practical effects. Like, it would have been very easy to just CGI the shit out of the alien or the face huggers or whatever, but there were a lot of moments where everything did flow very seamlessly. It knew when to use visual effects and it knew when to use the practical effects, and both, for the most part, were done very effectively. There are, however, a couple moments where the visual effects definitely don't hold up and stand out very apparently. There's one moment in particular. They do something with a certain character to make it look like something else, and it was very apparently and glaringly fake. Like, it's very clearly CGI. It was very hard for me to ignore. It's like whenever I saw it, it almost hurt my eyes a little bit because of how not real it was. So yeah, I can't give the visual effects in here an A+ on that. So that's one that definitely stood out to me that really needed some work. Frankly, I honestly wonder if it really even needed to be in the movie at all. As far as other flaws in this movie go, I do feel like this Alien Romulus movie does take a little bit of that Star Wars The Force Awakens vibe, as in it gives us a movie with a plot that's a little too familiar. You have these characters that are on a spacecraft, an alien is on there, it's trying to kill them. It does in a lot of ways feel like the plot of Alien. Now I understand some of the Star Wars The Force Awakens, maybe in this case they want to introduce a new audience entirely to Alien, you know, make a modern day version of it, you know, get a new audience addicted to it, make them want to go see future Alien movies. But at the same time, you can't make it too familiar for the hardcore Alien fans that are out there, because they're going to be like, seen that before, know what's going to happen there. This is blatantly obviously what's going to happen here. There's a lot of Easter eggs in this movie, some that I'm sure are great throwbacks, some of which that I heard and I was like, hey, really cool to hear that line again. Other times I'm just like, okay, now we're just pulling something out of Alien and just plugging it into this movie. Also, I'm gonna get into the third act because I feel like this is where people had either serious give and take. Some people absolutely love the third act. Other people, the third act lost them entirely. For me, I'm somewhere in the middle. For the most part, this movie is a sci-fi horror movie to a T. But there's a period when you get towards the end, it kind of shifts more into just being sci-fi action. I understand this movie's maybe trying to serve as a sequel to every Alien movie in some way, shape, or form. I'll touch more on that later on. But for me, it really did well at staying in that pocket of being this claustrophobic sci-fi movie that's, you know, filled with a bunch of horror, that when it shifted to more of an action vibe, not that the action wasn't fun, it just felt a little bit out of place. And yeah, undeniably, there are some moments in here where they kind of sort of throw logic out the window entirely. There's one in particular that some people are really enjoying. For me, when it was going on and it was happening, I was sitting there and I'm just like, would it really be happening that way? Yeah, it definitely had me rolling my eyes into the back of my head a little bit, undeniably so. Also, yeah, this movie really suffers from second ending syndrome. There's a moment in this movie you feel like it's done, it's wrapped up, we're finished, but then the movie kept going for another 10 minutes. And granted, this 10 minutes happens because one character chooses to do something that seemed a little bit foolish, where if the character just didn't do that entirely, we wouldn't even have this extra 10 minutes of film. And for me, that extra 10 minutes that we got, that extra ending really, was it necessary? For me, not really. I mean, I'll say as much, it has a great moment of extreme body horror. It brings us something that's very creepy and scary and brings the characters one last little obstacle they have to overcome for themselves. Yeah, it brings for some thrills, it brings for some scary moments, but I don't know, I just didn't feel like it was totally necessary. It didn't necessarily bring the movie up any pegs for me. To my understanding, it could maybe tie in more with the movie Prometheus. I could be totally wrong on that. Admittedly, I haven't seen Prometheus, so I wouldn't know. But again, it just felt more like the movie's like, okay, we gotta tie into more Alien movies. We could end the movie right here, but we gotta tie more into the franchise, so here, throw this in there for everybody. I know, for me, less would have been a little bit more in that sense, and the fact that it dragged on for as long as it did with what they decided to do, for me, it just didn't work. So all in all, Alien Romulus, it's a worthy entry into the Alien franchise. Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson both crushing in this movie. I loved both their characters. I loved their dynamic. The other characters aren't as memorable, but, you know, do you really care as much? Does it affect the movie for you? Not at all. You're kind of hoping for whoever you dislike the most to just die. The movie has unbelievable sound design, great practical effects, very effective horror when it wants to. Seriously though, the body horror in this movie, best I've seen in a while. Has some fun Easter eggs that are throwbacks, others that kind of just felt like lazy writing. There are moments where they throw logic completely out the window. There are moments where they definitely go a little too over the top. They didn't really need to have the extra 10 minutes in this movie that they threw in there, in my opinion. Could have definitely cleaned up some CGI here and there, and some they probably could have just not had entirely in there, and it would have made the movie a little more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. But in the end, it's like this. If you're a die-hard Alien fan, like you really love this franchise, you love all these movies, you love everything that's been given to you, you will probably absolutely fucking love this movie because it will have so much that ties into it that you're really gonna appreciate. And even still, if you're like me and you're a lot looser with this franchise, I still think you'll walk out of this movie having a really good time with it. And undeniably, I'm interested to see where other Alien movies could potentially go here. I'll definitely say Fede Alvarez was probably the best choice to direct this movie, and I'd like to see him come back and do another one. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video, and as always, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.